Good afternoon, everybody. So thank you, our co-chairman, for the introduction. As we said, we're going to talk about this Foundation Realistic On-Call Simulation Training, or FROST course, which was a novel course that we designed and have delivered for Foundation trainees in the East Kent Hospitals Trust. So as with all these things, we had seen that Foundation trainees didn't actually get much training during their Foundation programme, particularly the FY1s. Their training was front-loaded in the induction programme and consisted of a lot of lecture-based, PowerPoint-based things that were mandatory elements that the Trust had to deliver to them. But actually, the Trust came across a problem, and that's what started this story really, was that the Canterbury Hospital in the centre of our Trust came under a lot of criticism, and this is a Kent Online article at the top right of our poster, just a headline there, when actually it lost, Canterbury Hospital lost the Foundation trainees from it, having had some concerns with the training offered there, and particularly the confidence of the trainees in the Trust when going on call. So our medical education department came to us and said, actually, can the simulation team deliver some training to these Foundation doctors? And there's 60 Foundation trainee FY1s within our Trust. They wanted them released for the minimum amount of time possible from the wards, because obviously they don't get any study leave, and obviously there's sort of financial implications on service provision. And so they were looking at maybe having 2 or 3 days, which would obviously necessitate training 20 plus people each day in our simulation lab. However, we turned around and we said, actually, we want to provide a quality day of training and day of simulation for these doctors. And so after some discussions, we came out that they would be released for 6 days for each year. So it still left us with 10 Foundation Year 1 doctors per day. And we ran a timetable together. We thought we could deliver 10 scenarios in a day, exactly 10 minutes of simulation. Very hard work. So our timetable involved doing a 10-minute of simulation with a 20-minute structured debrief afterwards, with breaks built in as well. And we came back and said to them, could you work with that? And they said, yeah, we could release the trainees for 6 days overall. So pitching the scenarios was very difficult. Obviously, there was a brief, like it was going to be quite a quick scenario, but actually, as an FY1 doctor, it's quite easy to write a situation for a scenario that would involve an FY1 arriving and immediately identifying that they were out of their depth and needed to call for help and escalate the situation, and that would be entirely appropriate. But we wanted these doctors to gain confidence. We wanted them to make decisions and act on their own and using their own clinical judgment and actually put things into place, which is an ideal modality that simulation provides to deliver that. So the situations and scenarios we developed were things that you would be familiar with, anyone who's done any simulation training. So things like, sepsis and anaphylaxis, acute scenarios. We ordered and structured the day so that there was a minimum turnaround time. So we spent a lot of time with our sim team developing that. So, for example, moving from this example here was a transfusion reaction. Well, the transfusion reaction occurred just after a hemorrhage scenario. So actually it was the same patient that went and you delivered blood to in one scenario, went and had a debrief, and then the next scenario was actually that patient having a transfusion reaction to limit the amount of turnaround that we had to do. And we delivered it the first year. We wanted it to be as close to the induction period as possible, but due to constraints within the Trust, and as I said, a lot of mandatory elements they had to deliver, we ended up delivering it within the first rotation that the FY1 doctors had within the Trust. And we delivered 6 days of that course last year.
It was me. So my name's Andrew. I'm one of the sim fellows that worked in the Trust last year. I had a look at how we'd evaluate this programme. Because confidence is such a difficult thing to measure, we did a mixed methods approach to the evaluation. So I used I devised a visual analogue scale to measure their pre and post course confidence, and looking at that, we saw a trend towards an increase in the confidence of the doctors, which you can see in the top graph. So blue is pre, and then orange is post for each of the days we run the simulation. And then we have now run this for a second year, and the second year that we ran this, we did it actually in their induction week, in the shadowing week, and now have a statistically significant increase in their confidence over time, as well as some qualitative measures which show that they enjoy the course and find the scenarios realistic as well. So that's all we've got time for. So thank you very much for listening, and we welcome any questions.